bets. Cameron, welcome to these guys are 2-minute leeway, so if you want to go and tell the boys that we're ready to start away for the 15-minute or the 10 minutes of qualifying for today's third round, and we've got pretty much an offer from one of these 5 drivers. We can pretty much say that all Matthias has to do is finish today's race and he will be in the box seat for Championship glory, of course, heading into next season when we move to Project Cars 2 for the remainder of all the categories, including the introduction of Super 2 and the main game, of course. So Cameron, welcome to the broadcast. Who do you think is going to take pole position today?
Well, last race, we definitely saw something interesting as Josh seemed to struggle when his tyres got really bad. It might be because he was on controller, but still that's a huge factor into this race. Maybe he wants to try and keep a consistent time around the track to stay at the top.
Definitely a lot of different paint schemes we're seeing. We're noticing Tyler Beasley running a new rescheme Monster Energy livery. Banana Josh has got a new colour scheme. My guess would be a Niki Lauda tribute, of course, for those who Formula 1 fans. And of course, Niki Lauda, 3-time Formula 1 world champion, legend of the sport, passed away over the week. Kidney failure, we believe it was, as a result of multiple things being done to the Austrian. Lung transplant, of course, after all that horrendous accident that happened to him in 1975. So red, which was his primary colour for most of the time. He's spent a lot of time at Ferrari, of course, 2 world championships for Ferrari, 1 at McLaren. And, you know, just a pretty very down-to-earth, honest bloke. So a lot of people paying tribute for that. Jordan Dipp is running a brand new livery from the RXP. It's very interesting. I've never heard of it before. And then the whole field's quite bunched up, which is probably not the most ideal situation to be in when you're in a qualifying session, because a mistake from a driver in front usually will compromise the driver behind a little bit. As we'll watch Joshua Moore on board as he does a lap around the Nurburgring circuit, formerly a Formula 1 track. It's been under a lot of financial insecurities, hence why we haven't seen it since 2013. The Hockenheimring has been generally the go-to place for the Formula 1 Grand Prix as of late, but even then it's been going on and off quite a bit due to financial woes from the German government. Seems like, to be perfectly honest, if you had a choice between the Nürburgring and the Hockenheimring, which would you prefer if Formula 1 was to make a choice?
I'd probably say the Nurburgring. I hate Hockenheim.
I would agree, actually, because I've had pretty good success here on the 2013, 2012 games back in the Pool Age, and 2012 was Hockenheim as well. But, you know, I've had plenty of success here in the past, and it's such a characteristic circuit. You've got your really fast bends, you've got your really tight bends, including the infamous Turn 1, where you see probably a lot of... You'd be pretty... one-track minded if you didn't think that there was not going to be an incident at Turn 1 in either the Toyotas or the Porsches today, so keep that in mind. For those wondering why I'm not mentioning the main game at the moment, the main game has elected that since the championship has been pretty much wrapped up by myself, there's not really a need to carry on, and with the preparation for Project Cars 2 getting underway, we are looking to just get on it as early as possible. So Josh goes to the top with a 2-minute 5.8. The general thing I've noticed much about GT Sport is generally the person who leads them off into the thing does generally do the fastest lap of the race. So it's an interesting concept, because in F1, generally someone maybe third down the train could do the fastest lap of the race, but I've noticed, well, mainly in the Toyota at least, the driver that's the first one out generally does do the fastest lap of the session, and then usually holds it at least until somebody gets their feet again. Keep an eye on Matthias today, because of course he's out to... He only has to finish now in today's race to be crowned the champion of the 86 series with only a round to go, so we could see that also in the Porsche series with Joshua Banks if Sebastian Spicer doesn't win the race. Josh will win the championship pretty much outright, and then if Sebastian wins, Josh has to finish lower than 8th for the title to go to to Brands Hatch for the final round of the championship. Just to give people a bit of an insight on what's happening with the Project Cars 2 turnover at the moment, what we've managed to do differently is that for the main game we were running 3 races, which were with a reverse grid second race, and then the combined point of those 2 races dictated the grid for the third and feature race. That race, this formula was constructed by the 2006 Supercar Championship, and I think it actually was might have been a bit earlier. I might do my homework on that one, come back to you guys at Brands Hatch with that one. And then we've been doing that most of the season. We did start with the normal 60k, 120k format, which we're going back to for the main game for next season with the Project Cars 2 championship system as it is. We'll just wait and see if Evgeny's gone to the top of the 205.7, Matthias with a 205.8. So Evgeny is showing his good qualifying pace. Unfortunately, his qualifying pace hasn't really translated into good race. Well, race pace is probably the wrong way to call it. It's the first turn has been his undoing. We saw it in Bathurst. He qualified on the front row at Bathurst only to be wiped out by none other than the driver behind him, Tyler Beasley, and then inadvertently qualified on pole in last weekend's race only to be taken out by a Merle at the first turn. So he'll be hoping today that everyone kind of behaves themselves heading into things. So we've only got 2 minutes now left on the clock, so we shouldn't be too far away from seeing much more going on, as Evgeny is marginally improving into every sector, but Matthias is just as equally, in fact Matthias is 16th up heading into sector 2. Of course this track has 4 sectors, much like most other tracks, so the logic on Gran Turismo has always been a little bit out of place compared to Formula 1 or F1 or Project Cars for that matter, so probably one of the few reasons we're moving. Matthias goes a bit wide out of the last bend, but goes nearly a second faster into sector 3 than Evgeny. Evgeny is just pulling everything out of his bag to try and secure this pole position. Tyler's really close up behind him, so we'll get things. So you might want to give him a 1 minute warning now from this one and tell him that this will be their last laps. Evgeny doesn't improve. Tyler goes to the top of the 205.2, waiting for Matthias. Matthias crosses the line, only second fastest, so a 205.3. So he would have been on course for pole position, but unfortunately didn't seem to manage to pull it out. So what does Jordan do here? Jordan crosses the line, does a 2 minute 10.8, so he's 5 seconds off the pace, Jordan. Joshua Law currently on a 205.8, so he's 2 seconds off the pace. It doesn't look like he's improving either, so your theory about the tyres is pretty much bang on. And even though, and actually in saying that, Tyler's used up quite a fair amount of tyres. We watched, I think that might have been Matthias going off the circuit. So pretty much everyone now is on a final lap, so you might as well tell them that qualifying's concluded, and once they cross the line, that's it. So unless, I don't think, didn't see any purple sectors. Jordan's on a personal best, but only by the marginalist of options. So Tyler's made a huge off coming out of hairpin. Not sure what the name of that one is. We can almost just pretty much conclude that qualifying will be finished. So there won't be an improvement. Still not seeing any purples. I'm seeing Jordan racking up some blue sectors, which is a personal best. So I think Josh will be the first driver across the line. We're just waiting to see what Josh does. He's going to come across the line first, so he'll complete his qualifying run here. Not going to be an improvement if it's going to be a 206.2. If Guinea will come across the line, nowhere near an improvement for him, then it will be Tyler, and Tyler's not even in the slightest bit in the clear for that one, and Matthias has long since backed off. So, and Jordan's got a 5/10 penalty, so I don't think, we'll just wait and see what he can do. What he's going to do. I don't think he's going to be in any shape or form. He's going to try for it, but it was only a 2:11.2. So there's your qualifying for today's penultimate race of the season. And Tyler Beasley makes it 3 different pole sitters in 3 different races. So let's get underway. So not what I was expecting, to say the least, to see Tyler Beasley rack up a pole position ahead of Matthias Pacelli. I thought Yevgeny, looking at his previous pace, was quite on the money there. Well, my cursor's able to move, funny. Get that out of the way somehow. So your grid order is this. So Tyler Beasley on pole position from Matthias Pacelli. Then it's Yevgeny Dalikow, Joshua Law, and Jordan Dittmer makes up your top 5. So pretty much the same grid number as we saw in Bathurst for round 1. So 2 drivers missing, but we'll definitely have a lot more showing for Project Cars 2. The lights go out, and it was actually, oh god, everyone. I don't really think there was actually a single driver that got off the line reasonably well. Josh was probably the best jumper, but didn't go anywhere with it. Yevgeny is going to pull him out and take the lead of the race. Matthias and Tyler are going to go side by side. Josh has actually managed to clear Matthias through this, but remember, Matthias only had to finish. All a bit of contact between Matthias and Josh. Jordan's just going to probably be Mr. Opportunistic and wait for these drivers to make a mistake. So good start there by Yevgeny. Got through 2 and 1 cleanly for the first time this season, and he'll be now just looking to try and use these 12 laps to pull a gap and make a charge on the field. So I just will quickly go off the page and back in so I can access it on board. Yep, so that's good. And we're just watching as Tyler's being ultra aggressive now on the back of Yevgeny. We'll just watch on the bumper cam as he could be possibly mounting an attack here. I wouldn't. Well, in Formula 1 logic, I wouldn't make an overtake here because it's too narrow, but with these cars being as slow as they are, they can be able to, Tyler's going to think about this, but Yevgeny has been pretty notorious on his brakes in the past, so he holds it together. So Cam, what did you make of that start?
For once, it was actually quite clean. Obviously, they all seemed to be equal when they got off the line, so there wasn't really much action, other than who would break late.
Just watching Tyler trying to make a move on the outside into the chicane. It's not the ideal plot. Josh decides he doesn't want the bollard there anymore, which does set the door up for a lot of traffic corner cutting. Matthias is just hanging back. Jordan's already got himself a 1 second penalty, which my guess would have been he probably is gone off the track. Yevgeny is going to try and break the draft. Josh is trying to have a crack here at Tyler down the straight. Matthias just knows what he's doing, so he's just not worried about where he's going to finish. He's already taken 2 race wins this season, so doesn't need to be too overly worried about whether he needs to take a third or not. But I mean, of course, to say that these guys don't come into blows with each other. I mean, Tyler's just looking so aggressive. I think Tyler is really aggressive at the first sector, but then where he needs to use it in the second sector, Yevgeny seems to have the measure. So Josh has actually just now managed to clear Tyler through all this, and should probably have a crack at Yevgeny, but I think Tyler won't let that one sit down. Matthias is now starting to bridge back up. Josh is actually going to fancy a move here. Ooh, and he's given a whack. Oh, actually a bit more of a whack. It was actually a full-on serve. So I was just about to make a comment that Josh is not the particular type of person who paces himself when it matters. He actually will get his arms out, and as a result, you've just seen what's become of it. But Yevgeny hasn't lost overly too much time. He's lost 4 seconds to the leaders, but of course the leaders are going to continue battling. As Josh has now got a 5-10 penalty, I would imagine, as a result of the contact. Tyler's now fancying a move up the inside. Josh tries to cover, gets on the grass. Matthias is really on the grass. Yeah, Tyler's going to try and do this outside. He's going to try and do what Schumacher did in 95 on Jean Alesi. He's actually forcing the issue. Both yeah, Tyler's getting hit. Yeah, Tyler's trying to get his arms out. Matthias has just found an incentive there. He hasn't actually used it. Just going to check the... here we go again. Tyler down the inside at turn 1 on Josh. Can he get the job done? Yes, he can. So Matthias still looking. So as you can see, Yevgeny has already clawed back a lot of that time he's lost. Now out to 3.3 seconds as this battle just rages on between these two. Now the top two have a massive tank slapper, and Matthias didn't use the opportunity, and that's something I think Matthias is just pacing himself, because he knows if he goes if he goes in too hard, he's likely to make a mistake, and he'll be working on trying to rectify that throughout not only this game but F1 as well. Hasn't had the best F1 season to date. As Josh gets some pretty good, actually gets some pretty decent acceleration out of the other corner in the gap. Yevgeny is just continuing. Jordan's got a 4-second penalty. God knows what he's been doing. I haven't been paying attention, but yeah, Jordan's just... I would say he's probably continuing to do this thing, as Matthias has been made him try to make a move on Josh there, but it's been actually escorted out wide a little bit.
Josh isn't messing about today, is he?
No, he's obviously looking to try and get that elusive race win before the season ends, and of course before we move to Project Cars 2. Super aggressive on the curb there. I wouldn't be too surprised if that doesn't amount to another 5/10, but it looks like it hasn't. Matthias has backed off and is actually now under siege, and actually funnily, when I thought about that, I thought Yevgeny was a bit aggressive on that corner too, but it looks like he got away with it, but Yevgeny didn't. Got a 1 second penalty. Jordan has elected to actually drop his penalty and is now 13 seconds behind Yevgeny and 17 seconds off the lead of the race, and Tyler's now starting to drift out a little bit, but he's also starting to pull a gap on Josh, who is got a penalty as well, so these two would be playing for position. Matthias, as long as he can stay back a bit, can... See, if I was Tyler now, I would probably just drop the penalty, maybe surrender the position, and then just hang on the back of Josh until the end of the race, because I don't think Josh is going to be too optimistic on the idea of dropping his penalty while he's got Matthias behind him. So for Tyler, it's a bit easier because he's got about 1.7 seconds to Matthias. So if he dropped the half-tenth, he would only drop to about 1.2 behind. Yeah, about 1.3 behind, so he could let Josh through, drop the penalty, and then just stick behind Josh until the end of the race, and that would be victory for Tyler. At the moment, if they're not too careful and they start battling again, and then Matthias draws himself within 5/10 of them both, then that's Matthias's third race win in a row, and pretty much the title sealed. And yep, as I expected, Tyler has elected to just drop the penalty and let Josh through. So whether Josh will be understanding of that actually, but I think Tyler might have got caught napping a little bit on that one. Ooh, and he's actually had to take to the inside curve to avoid creating a collision there, but it looks like he may have gotten away with that one by doing that. So I think my theory behind it was correct, so Tyler, don't hold me on that one. I think in essence you probably just didn't get up to speed quick enough to predict the idea that Matthias would come in raging hot. So Josh will take the lead of the race. He's got 1.9 seconds, so now he's actually in a position where he doesn't need to worry too much about the penalty. But the tyre factor should start kicking in, and the idea is that Tyler gets another 5-10 penalty. You've got to be careful through that sweeping function, and Yevgeny has now rejoined the train, but he's also got a 1.5 second penalty to his name, so he needs to get rid of that. As for the fuel function, I think everyone is pretty much fueled to the end, but I don't know if that's 100% accurate, as Matthias is now on the attack. He's obviously figured that now's the time to attack Josh while everything's in perspective. Tyler goes a little wide out of the carousel. I think that's what it's called. I'm not 100% sure, don't quote me on it. We'll just call it the carousel because it kind of does remind you of one. Although in saying that, there is a carousel in the Nordschleife, isn't there?
I think so.
So it wouldn't be too out of function. Oh, Tyler. Oh, and Yevgeny's gone with him. Almost. Yevgeny's now attacking the back of Tyler. Matthias is going to fancy a shot here on Josh. Not quite in position to make a full-on move. Yevgeny has grabbed Tyler in the process of that, but of course with that 1.5 second penalty on his head, he won't be able to really do anything. Josh has actually managed to take a 10th out of his penalty just on that corner, but he needs to be careful that he doesn't overdo it. There's 6 laps left to go, so we've just reached the halfway point of the race. We're currently at 8:22, so we've still got plenty of time for the 4th race, and Tyler's now side by side with Yevgeny down the inside, and Josh Dunn. Yevgeny is going to try and do the over and under. Not the best place to do it, especially with Tyler's ability to drift out wide through here, so I wouldn't be too optimistic on a move there. Matthias is now just trying to find every little way in the book he can to unsettle Josh and put him on edge. Josh is going actually defensive into this section. This could actually set Matthias up quite nicely for a dive up here. It's not an impossible overtaking spot if you feel like you can commit to it. But it didn't look like Matthias was overly confident on that one. So Jordan now 30 seconds off the lead, just enjoying himself, waiting to see if someone gets spun around or something like that. But his Bathurst second place just probably feels like a distant memory for him at the moment, as he's struggling to keep up with the rest of the field. Just really waiting to see what Matthias has got planned here, because he's had several opportunities in my books to have a go. Maybe my books are a little outdated from the touring car standard, but he's had every pretty decent opportunities to just kind of use the brakes to his advantage and just mount an attack as Josh goes. Oh, okay, Josh has elected to try and drop his penalty, and he's actually done it quite cleverly. But in saying that, he actually didn't drop any time, so I think if anything, that actually probably affected Matthias more. And Tyler's in, so that's an interesting development. Why would you be coming in? There's no mandatory pit stop, so I'm not 100% sure what the end game of that one is. We'll just wait and see how that plays out. We're right on board with Matthias now as we watch the differences in attacking lines as Josh goes horrendously wide into one. Could see him move here actually. Here we go. Yep, Matthias down the inside. Josh is going to have to yield here. And he does. He tries to do the switchback, which actually might have worked a little bit, but of course Tyler, Thing's going to have the acceleration. Josh has actually had to go off the circuit to make the move. Thing does. Is Josh going to try and force the issue here? Yes, he is actually. He's got to be careful. He's already made a mistake by doing that kind of move on Yevgeny, and that ended up with Yevgeny being carted off the circuit. So Josh needs to just mellow out a little bit. Oh, here we go again, opportunistic dive bomb here. And again, but this time it looks like Matthias has been a little wise to it and has elected to get on the brake a little later to stop the car from being put in a position. Yevgeny looks like he could be back to try and even the score a little bit. I know Yevgeny wouldn't be the kind of person to do as such, unless you're watching this. Yevgeny, I'll remind you of F3 Austria, Mr. Debutant. I'm kidding anyway, but if I was in Yevgeny's shoes, I would be pretty miffed off by the situation, that the move was overly aggressive and that. Oh, he's done it again. He's actually given Matthias a full royal serve, and he's actually going to try and redress that, so he feels like he's done wrong by that, but that's put Yevgeny in a really, really strong position right now.
You could drop that penalty. I probably would as well.
Well, he's got more than 7 seconds on the belt now, and with only 4 laps left to go, I wouldn't even bother. Unless he was in a position where Matthias was pulling him in nearly a second a lap, which could be a possibility, you never know. I wouldn't be too worried about it. Laughing your penalty wasn't the ideally smartest thing to do on certain circumstances, because the pickup cost you more time. The pickup back to speed actually cost you more time than the thing. I do apologise on that front, Tyler, on that, because I thought honestly with that time you would have been fine, but then you look at then I had forgot to look into the getting back up to speed time of the essence. Jordan with a 1.4 second penalty now sits equal with things, so I think Matthias will have a bit of mixed emotion for today. He just lost the race win, effectively, unless Yevgeny makes a mistake. But he'll still come out of this the champion, so it's, yeah, I think he would have wanted to go out in a blaze of glory and win 3 races in a row and the championship, maybe even go as far as go to Brands Hatch and just clean the series. Unfortunately, with only 1 pole position to your name, Matthias, you can't really say that you could have done that. Josh has done the fastest lap of the race at 2:05.1, which is actually just marginally faster than the qualifying time. So it's quite funny how in this game you can actually go faster than your qualifying time during a race, and you wouldn't say you would say that your fuel is actually about the same throughout the race versus qualifying. So we just wait and see what happens further along. Tyler's actually managed now, because of this instance, to actually now have a chance at possibly attacking the second and third, but of course with the 1.9 second penalty on us, he's not really in a position to mount an attack. Jordan's dropped his penalty again. He's now he is literally now 50 seconds off the lead of the race. And the gap has actually dropped a little bit from 6.8 to 6 seconds, but I think it's just I actually really think Matthias' strength comes in the first sector. And that's the part that amazes me, Cam, is Jordan now comes into the pits. It seems like every driver on this track at the moment has a really strong sector. You can see that Evgeny is pretty strong in the second sector. Josh is pretty strong in the third sector, obviously based on where he can attack. And Matthias really has a strong first sector, which you can see based on the overtake. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, considering they're all good in different sectors, it means you do get like a lot of different overtakes in different parts of the tracks.
And it also demonstrates whether or not the driver being attacked by that particular person is weak in that area or not. I wouldn't say every driver has a weak point in the circuit. I mean, turn 1, turn 4, I think it is, everyone seems to always have the rear slapping out from underneath them through the chicane. I don't really see too much in the difference of aggression. Just watching Evgeny go through, he was quite conservative. Matthias had to be conservative because he was going to go wide and corner cut that. Josh definitely uses a lot. Josh definitely uses a lot more curb than everyone else. Tyler actually does his best to stay off the curb in general. Jordan's a bit too far back to use him for an example at the moment. Now turn 1 will observe as well, so Evgeny very slow in and no wheel spin out. Matthias slow in, a little bit more acceleration than Josh, very quick in and very wide out. So you can see Josh is definitely the more aggressive driver of this category, just based on how he attacks versus everyone else. So another good example will be the carousel, as we've called it, going through here. You get it just a little wobbly on the exit. So coming into the hairpin, so the best line would be to make as little turning as possible. So Evgeny swoops in and clean. Matthias swoops in and clean. Josh tries to swoop in, but then goes horrendously wide in the process of it. And Tyler, pretty much the same. So, except actually Tyler goes into the gravel as he sets the fastest third sector in the same time. So,
you can definitely tell by Josh's tyre wear that compared to like Tyler's, that he's definitely more aggressive around attacking and just overall.
Well, that's also on the account that Tyler has made a pit stop for fresh tyres. Josh is also on a controller. I think Tyler is as well, but it definitely shows the difference. Tyler's been going, this is amazing, Tyler's been going off every time I've seen him, but yet he's still punching out purple sector splits as he does it. So I would imagine if he wasn't doing that, oh my goodness me, he's given, I don't think, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I don't think there was much of a corner there, but I actually think he's got away with it in that regard. That's quite interesting. Although I think it's always been like that. I've always think the inner curve of the corner as he sets it, he only misses that by 1/100th of a second, or 1,000th of a second. I've always found that you could use that curve quite aggressively in the inside, but it's the outside part where the chicane ends where apparently you can exploit your track limits. No one else is really... Oh, Jordan's got another second penalty. Actually, he's coming up to the hairpin chicane now, so we can view Jordan's take on how he attacks the chicane. Now more than a minute behind the leaders. So let's see. Very wobbly because of course Jordan's on a controller as well. Not too... Well, wasn't too bad up until the second part of it. Of course, Jordan is trying to use no traction. Well, because of him being in the main game, he's been practicing no traction. But now that we're moving to Project Cars 2 and the Supercars season has ended, he's more than welcome to turn his traction back on and whatnot. So not sure what to make on that one, but I think the Yevgeny, this will be a little bit of redemption for the last 2 races where he probably felt like he was in for a shot for victory, but was handed a tough blow when Tyler locked up at turn 1 at Bathurst, and then a mural. I'll just say that. Sorry, Merrill, if you're watching. Oh, Yevgeny, don't make me deliver the commentator's curse. Matthias has done a good job all season long. He's been super consistent. Of course, he won the first 2 races, bagged pole position at Bathurst, which under any motorsport pedigree, a pole position at Bathurst is usually really good on your resume. So final lap. Banana Josh has only made 2 races this season of the 4, and it looks like he's going to score 2 third places in a row, so not too bad for Josh, unless Tyler's got an answer, although with a 3.9 second time penalty, I don't think Tyler's got an answer. So yeah, for Yevgeny, it's been a pretty rough ride. He's already qualified on pole position, which was cruelly taken away from him. I think he did end up finishing in P. Oh, actually, I think Josh finished second actually last weekend, if I remember correctly. It was, I think, because I think Tyler and Yevgeny have both shared a podium this season. Jordan finished second in the Bathurst race, but was considered an invite driver at the time, so his points didn't go towards it. So for Yevgeny, this would be the tiebreaker. As I said, actually, sorry, I never did say it, but coming into this event, Matthias had a comfortable lead and will come out of this the champion, but there was a 3-way battle for second place with Ludwig, Yevgeny, and Tyler, and Yevgeny today is going to break that deadlock with a comfortable 100 points. So it's going to be probably, I wouldn't call it an outpour of emotion, because of course it's not F1 for these guys, but for Yevgeny, I'm sure this will be a wipe off the brow, sigh of relief, and probably a little bit of boozing up tonight, if Yevgeny will take round 3 of the Transnation Porsche Toyota 86 Series, and Matthias Vitelli is the Transnation Toyota 86 Series champion. So there you have it, folks, our champion of the Toyota 86 Series. Of course, it is only a 4-round series as opposed to them starting a bit later than the rest of the field, but already Matthias has taken out the crowning glory, and Tyler will reverse the car, or tried to reverse the car. Now he's actually ended up having to try and swing it back around for position 4. Joshua Law will take the podium, and Jordan Dittmer will bring it home for P5 if he can make it across the line. Of course, there is a timer, and if Jordan doesn't make it across the line before the timer ends, he will not be classified as a finisher. So that's been the common denominated rule for the GT Sports. That will, of course, that will actually differ a little bit in Project Cars. There is a timer for the cool down lap. We'll just wait for Jordan.
Looks like he's not bringing it.
Oh, he's got... the timer doesn't usually... Oh, he's definitely... he's given us a spectacle, but he's definitely wanting to get across the line. 4 points. Took a 3-second hit for that one, so that might explain where those penalties come from. And no, he didn't actually make it in the end, so unfortunate for Jordan there, but congratulations to our race winner and of course our champion. So running a Merc spec helmet for Yevgeny, who takes the win from 3rd on the grid. And there you have it, folks. So Cam, well, thank you for your time and good luck in today's Porsche Carrera Cup race. We'll just set that up shortly. And for those viewing, thanks for watching. Good race today, actually, I think. A little bit different in regards to our pole sitter and our race winner. and Yevgeny is just expressing his joy of finally taking out a race win. For now, we'll bid goodbye for the Toyota 86 Series this weekend at Nurburgring. We'll now head over to the final round of the weekend next weekend at Brands Hatch for the Brands Hatch 500. Well, actually, the Brands Hatch 500, which is no longer part of the supercar calendar anyway, but for the Porsche and the Toyota we are carrying on. So without further ado, we'll sign out from Nurburgring, and we'll see you again at Brands Hatch.